Welcome to New Release Review, part of the Movie Friends podcast. Today we're talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, directed by Jeff Rowe. We will be discussing spoilers, so please do not listen to this or watch this video if you have not seen this movie. We don't need your downloads that bad. My name is Seth, and today I am joined by Christian Eulenberg. He's the host of Film Optix podcast, and he's a first-time guest on the show, and I'm excited to have him. Christian, what's going on?
Hey, man, what's going on? Thank you so much for having me. I've been a long-time listener of the Movie Friends podcast, and I didn't know for a while that Seth had his own podcast. I was like, hold on. I met this man through Twitter, or now X, whatever you want to call it, but the domain is still twitter.com.
Twitter, that's what I'm calling it.
I was like, oh, Seth has his own podcast, and I've been meaning to tell you I've been listening to it, and I was like, wow, this is really insightful. I love what you guys do, like old school movies. It's always my jam, but I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. When you had told me that, two other people that week had said, I didn't know that you had a podcast. And it made me, believe it or not, it made me happy because I don't enjoy self-promotion. And so I feel like I'm constantly posting about the show. And so for people to be like, oh, okay. I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm not as annoying with it as I thought that I was.
I am so annoying with ours. It's like, it can be draining. So count yourself lucky. Like, self-promotion, it's a different beast.
You know what? No one's going to do it for us. And so you have to do it. And when you put the amount of time into it, it's crazy to not, have people listen to it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, it's all in good fun. We're here talking about some movies, and I'm very excited to dive into today's discussion.
So before we get into this movie in particular, do you have a history with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
I do. So my first real introduction to them, like I was born in 92. So, the original cartoon show was airing during that time, but I never really watched it because, again, I was a baby. So it's like,
sure.
That kind of missed me. I've watched a little bit of the first movie at like a friend's house at some point during like the Power Rangers era, whatnot.
Sure.
But I really got into the Turtles with the 2003 animated show. I believe it was on Kids WB because I think at that time Warner Brothers owned the property of TMNT. So from like that point onwards, I was just like a full Turtle fan, and it's like it was amazing. But I've been going back and rewatching the theatrical movies I have not yet seen like fully through this past week because I love being a turtle, all that stuff. All that stuff. But no, it's my history of the turtle has grown, and it feels like I haven't revisited them in a while. I know there's been a few shows on Nickelodeon with but now I'm able to I'm at a point in my life where I can revisit some of these turtle classics and possibly get into a new animated series of their franchise, depending on the time that I have. But what about you? What's your history of the Turtles?
Sure. So I would have watched the cartoon a bunch as a kid. It was good. There's a really, really great compilation on YouTube. At least there was a few years back that collected all of the animation errors in the first one. There will be times where someone's arm is just through another person's arm, or masks are changing colors, or things will be transparent that aren't supposed to be. It's pretty funny when you see it all in a row. You don't really notice it too much when you watch the show. And then I was a big fan of the Super Nintendo game, Turtles in Time. Yeah,
a little bit before my time, but yes. I do remember it being on some people's favorite video game list.
Yes, that was a big one for arcade because you could play with all four characters. Really, really great. And then I watched the first three live action movies with the still good looking, if you ask me, full body suit puppet things
I agree.
From the Henson company. I haven't seen 3 in a very, very long time, so I can't stand by that one.
I have a confession. I recently just watched the first 3 live action turtle movies. I had a blast with the first 2. And then I watched the third one about 2 days ago. And I was like, wow. It was
Yeah,
it's definitely it's different. I
yeah,
had fun with it, but I'd never seen it before like a few days ago. And I was like, oh man, I was riding on this high of like,
right,
you know, the first Turtles movie and then Secret of the Ooze. And then my friend came out, he's like, hey, he's like, I just want to let you know, don't expect the same quality from the first movies.
right.
It's like where you have, you know, SpongeBob, you know, in the episode where he thinks that, you know, he's either gonna like die or whatever, and then you
Mm-hmm.
have Mr. Krabs and Squidward like in the background, like in the other room, and then Mr. Krabs is like, how do we tell him? I feel like that
Right,
was my
right,
friends like, oh man, he's enjoying these turtle movies so much, but like I have to warn him about the third one.
right, right. Yeah, it has a little bit of the Back to the Future original trilogy, where like
Mm,
the first 2 are really great, and then a lot of people don't like the third one because they like go way back in time. I love the third Back to the Future, but my memory on the third one as a kid watching it was like, this is nowhere near as good. Maybe if I watched it now, I would feel differently. And then I did catch, there was an animated movie sometime in the mid 2000s that came out. That was
mm,
computer animated, I think. I watched that one, and that one was like okay. I watched the first Michael Bay Turtles movie, and I don't really remember loving it too much. And I think I just skipped the Out of the Shadows or whatever, the sequel that they made to that. In
yeah.
fact, last night as I was looking at like the whole filmography, I was like, did they make a sequel to that one? Like it completely just went out of my mind. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So what did you think about this movie?
So for Mutant Mayhem, I adored it. Like I had such a fun time with it. You know, me being like a big Turtles fan. There's definitely bigger Turtle fan out there, but I thought it was like an absolute blast. It offered like a fresh and realistic perspective on, you know, the teenage turtles that we all know and love. I feel like within this movie they have their own identity. Because I was talking to a buddy of mine and he was saying the only issue is that he's had with some iterations of the turtles is that sometimes that they can feel like the same person split into like 4 different
Sure.
personalities.
Sure.
And he really he was talking about how he adored that, you know, we're able to see more character depth with the turtles with this new iteration, because it feels like ever since Nickelodeon got the property for the turtles, they just like reboot it every 2 to 3 years,
Yeah.
which is great because you can do so much with this franchise. There's like 40 years of history here, and with this new film for Mutant Mayhem, I feel like this truly, outside of Spider Verse, I feel like this truly is like the everyman's movie of 2023, because you have the older fans and newer fans coming in and just enjoying this movie as it is. You have the younger fans coming off of Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the show on Nickelodeon that's airing right now, and then you get, you know, the older fans from like the original cartoon or like the 2003 series, and you know, so on and so forth. But I loved the soundtrack in this movie, which is
Yeah.
so spot on, and the visuals were so stunning, and of course Jackie Chan, who we
Yeah.
haven't seen in a while, just coming back as Master Splinter. I absolutely adore this movie. This is one of my favorite movies of the year, like
Wow.
100%.
Okay.
And
Wow.
it's like animation, like, you know, we get these new iterations of animation, and it's very it's just a great time. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, the score Trent Reznor, right? Did the
Mm,
score for this?
yeah, I think so. I think that
Yeah.
that sounds right.
The soundtrack was cool. I appreciated anytime a Tribe Called Quest is used. I'm a big fan of
Oh
that.
yeah.
And the score I thought was very it was effective, but it wasn't like over the top. There were
Mm,
some very like quiet moments where they're using the score that I literally was like taking note of, like, wow, this is really good. The score was close to maybe my favorite part of the movie.
mm,
And then the animation, I really like how we have kind of gotten out of the all animation looks the same bubble that we were
mm.
in from the mid 2000s to like today, to where everything looked like the Minions and Frozen, and everything had that like same kind of sheen.
Yeah, it's like
There
a
wasn't.
weird shine.
Yes, and like, as someone who grew up watching hand drawn animation, computer animation was cool, but it having like a stranglehold on all animation for so long, I think that we're definitely seeing the kickback to that now. Mitchell's versus the Machines, right? Like, that's computer animated, but
Right.
it had a different feel. The animation had like a different tone to it. Spider-Verse obviously kind of reawakened everyone to like, oh wow, this is what you can do with animation now
Yeah.
with technology's assistance. I saw a preview for the new Disney movie Wish
Hmm.
last night, and that looks like a hand-drawn hybrid kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then obviously Mutant Mayhem, and it's refreshing. It's not necessarily. I don't know that. I don't want to say that it's necessarily like better or the best. It's just refreshing that we're
Yeah.
out of that, and people are willing to make big budget movies that look different from everything being exactly the same. If you took characters and like lined them up from that like mid decade,
Mm.
from DreamWorks, from Pixar, it would look like they were all done by like the same people. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
Like, almost nothing would be different. And so now things are starting to look different. I appreciate it a lot in the movie. There would be like, it just looked like they had left in like sketch marks, or
Yeah.
there would just be like random like squiggles coming off of things. It felt very rough. Uh, yeah, I thought the animation looked really great. The other thing
Yeah.
that I really appreciated about this movie is that they are very clearly teenagers.
Yes. Thank it. No, and that's always been an issue with some iterations, because we've always known that they are teenagers, but at
Yeah.
the same time, it's like, okay, it's so my friend my same friend I was talking to, his name is Mike. He said between this movie and Spider-Verse, he's, as much as he loves Across the Spider-Verse, he said the only thing is that Miles does not feel like a teenager. He feels like an adult. And
Sure.
there's nothing wrong with that, because, it's a kid being Spider-Man. He's trying
Right.
to, be more mature about the decisions that he's making. It's an allegory for, growing up.
Sure.
But for these teenagers who are voiced by the Turtles, it felt so organic and
Yeah.
so just real, where it's like, I believe, at least this is coming from IMDb, where I looked it up prior to. Apparently, Seth Rogen had all four of the voice actors recorded in the same booth in order to get
Yes.
that organic feel.
Yes.
And I love how these, yeah, they feel like teenagers. It's a coming of age story as well, so it's much needed for the franchise, which is why I think that the franchise does so well. Is with each version of the Turtles, bring something new and different to the stage.
Yeah. The original movies, the trilogy movies, they really focused on the ninja part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Splinter being the pet of like a martial art master,
Yeah.
you know, where this movie, it feels like it does away with a lot of the ninja lore, and it almost I'm not a big believer in, well, this is the way it's always been, and so we have to stick to it. I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of Kylo Ren, who's like, let the past
Past
die.
die. Yes. Kill it if you have to.
Yes. Like, well, that's not Star Wars. Who cares? This is a new movie. Or like, that's
Amen.
not Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If we go back to the original black and white comic book that was extremely violent, nothing has touched that arena since. Everything has been a different focus on the story. And so for this one to really lean into them being teenagers, even to, the main thrust of the movie is craving acceptance
Mm.
and like wanting to go to high school and wanting to like have a normal life. I'm okay with them doing away with some of those other aspects. It made me a little sad to see some of the ninja stuff go to the side, because the vibe that I remember most from the original movies was, yes, there's a lot of comedy and there's a lot of goofy action, almost like Three Stooges action at some
Yeah.
points. Yeah.
For sure.
There were a lot of like very solemn moments, especially between like Leonardo and Splinter. And so I kind of wish that this had like a little bit of that, but hey, I'm not the one making the movies, so
Right.
who am I to really say?
No, so that's a really good point that you brought up, because this iteration of the Turtles for Mutant Mayhem, it feels like an origin story, but it also feels like an introductory, because obviously we know the origins of the Turtles. They get hit by ooze, so does the rat, and then they just they go from there. That's pretty much their origin altogether. Obviously, there's a little bit more sprinkled in there if you go with like the secret of the ooze,
Right.
all that. But I love how, and to your point, when it comes to the ninja stuff, obviously we get a lot of action, but it feels more like a beginning, because we are also getting a series of at least 2 seasons of this iteration of the Turtles,
Yeah.
followed by the next movie.
Right.
So I'm hoping within that time frame, because like you said, this whole movie is about acceptance, finding out where you belong. It's a tale of as old as time. Honestly, we've seen the story over and over again,
Yeah.
but it still works, because they are teenagers. They want to be accepted by society, and it's like it kind of this movie does a really good job of like, hey, living in the sewers like your entire life doesn't really seem like the best idea in the world. Like,
Sure.
obviously they're ninjas, they're supposed to the art of invisibility, like stay in the shadows, but like, heck man, they just want to get out and get some Zabra,
right.
Like, it's like
or watch a
like,
movie.
I love it.
Or
watch
they
watch,
want to watch Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, or they can either do that or be stuck at home figuring out which Chris is the best Chris.
Right.
But I feel like, really quick, if I can add this in, because once that scene happened where Master Splinter wants to bring the the surface life down below, and he has there's Chris Pine, Chris Pratt, and Chris Evans. Since Master Splinter was voiced by Jackie Chan, I
Yeah.
found that it was a huge missed opportunity to bring in a cutout of Mr. Chris Tucker.
Yeah.
That would have been, and like Splinter could have been like, oh, which Chris is the best Chris? This one's my favorite, and it's like Chris Tucker.
Right.
I thought that would have
that's
been
pretty funny.
That would have been hilarious. A nice little nod, like a joke within a joke, very meta kind of thing.
Right.
But I thought that would have been awesome. But back to your point where, yeah, the ninja stuff kind of falls off to the side. Hopefully we'll see that within the next movie, or at least a TV series. But it's yeah, because within the first live action movie, they really focus on like their weapons, whatnot, and then Secret of the Ooze, like they were still fighting, but they didn't use their weapons as much. So it's kind of, yeah, but I get what you're saying here, but I'm actually seeing it again today, so I'm very excited.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
As far as Jackie Chan, he's great. We're actually doing on Monday, the episode's coming out, we're doing on his film Police Story from 1985.
Oh,
And so
okay,
I've been like
nice.
living in Jackie Chan world for a little bit. And what I noted was his fight scene in this movie is a really good callback to a classic Jackie Chan fight scene, because he's getting beat up the whole time, which is an earmark of Jackie Chan fight
Yeah.
scenes, right? He's almost never the aggressor. He's just fending people off who are coming at him.
Mm.
And then the other thing is they use a prop. In this one, they use the wheelie chair. And if you watch it, like when you go and watch it today, just a picture like real life Jackie Chan in that scenario, and it plays out almost exactly like a choreographed Jackie Chan fight. And I thought
Okay.
that that part was really cool, and it's different from the other fight scenes in the movie. So there's no way they didn't do that,
Right.
on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how'd you feel about April O'Neil?
I thought she was fantastic. They're definitely, but like I said earlier, since they're playing to multiple audiences here, especially for kids, April O'Neil favors more of April O'Neil from the Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is on Nickelodeon. I think you can stream it on Paramount Plus right now. So they kind of favored her there. But I like how April is actually also a teenager, with other
Yes.
iterations of the turtle. She's either like, a 25 to 30-year-old reporter. And, obviously she's like taking care of like these little teenage turtles. But it was nice that everyone was on the same playing field when it came
Yeah.
to April. She still wants to be a reporter. She's not the most well-liked person in school. So she can relate to what the turtles are going through, with her barf scenes and whatnot, but which was hilarious. But I adored her character. I loved how confident she was, and I think um again, my buddy Mike, because he's a huge TMNT fan.
Sure.
I think he had said that this is the first time we've ever seen like April not faint when she sees the turtles, like
Oh,
in
okay.
any like TV show or movie. Like she's kind of like surprised and stepped back, but she's pretty quirky herself, so it's like,
Sure.
yeah. But I absolutely loved her. What about you? What did you think of her?
I thought she was great. Ao Edeberry voices her,
Mm.
right? And it seems like she is suddenly just everywhere.
Ever since the bear, have you
Yeah.
seen the bear?
So I work in the food industry. I own a
Mm.
restaurant, and I watched maybe 5 minutes of The Bear and had to shut it off
Oh.
because it was so realistic to what like a dysfunctional, stressful restaurant is like,
Mm.
that the whole time I was just like, I want to like jump through the screen and be like, do this and do this and do this. And the reason that this is chaotic is because you didn't do X, Y, and Z. And so I couldn't watch it. Like
Fair enough.
I couldn't, I one of my big things in the restaurant is like efficiency and systems so that
Right.
we don't get into a big mess where everyone's like screaming and freaking out. And so to watch a TV show about a kitchen that is like screaming and freaking out and like screaming, I was like, no way. No,
Fair enough,
I
man.
can't. Like I was having flashbacks to people like chefs that I have worked under that were, and I was like, nope, can't do it.
I
But
get it.
that's my seal of approval that it is very realistic.
Okay. I haven't seen it yet myself. I need to. I've been so much TV to watch these days. But yeah.
Oh yeah, I almost have just given up and just gone into movies because
No, Seth.
there's just so much, like I'll tell you this. The last show that I was like, okay, I'm going to get into it was Better Call Saul, and that was when it was in season 2.
I actually have not seen all of. Oh wow. Okay. I've seen all through Breaking Bad, but I haven't picked up Better Call Saul yet. Well, like, it's hard with television sometimes because there's so much good TV out there, and it's like you have to pick and choose. So I get it.
Yeah.
I definitely get it.
I will be interested to see if this one comes out. Like I have a 10-year-old son, and so he'll probably be interested in this, and so I'll probably check it out because I've already seen the movie
Yeah. Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
series for yeah. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if the movie. I think they're going into the series for Mutant Mayhem, like right after this movie. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
it's going to be called Mutant Mayhem or whatnot, but we get the little Shredder tease towards the end, which was pretty
Right.
cool.
Right.
But I'm not sure if they're. I would assume they're doing Mutant Mayhem, then the series, and then the next movie. I feel like that makes more sense than doing a movie than series, because now that the turtles are in high school, which is something I don't think we've ever seen before, and them removing their headbands, of course,
Yes,
them
that
having
was
their own.
also that was.
Yeah,
I was like, wow, okay,
yeah.
they're
And, I mean,
making big decisions here.
no, they really are. Even back to like the art style. I believe Seth Rogen had said they want it to seem like this world, and especially the turtles, were like drawn by kids, and I
Interesting.
love.
Okay.
And like I can definitely see that, because obviously, within the original 87 cartoon, it was literally just like the same turtle like model, just everyone has their own different headband, but they also have their own weapons.
Yes. Yeah.
But as they've evolved, now we get Donnie with glasses, and then Mikey with braces, and he has this Hey Arnold looking head, and
Right.
which is great. But yeah, uncharted territory for the turtles going to high school, something that they've wanted to do in this movie. And I think it's nice to, like you said, just take these older franchises. You have to modernize them, because if not, they're just going to get lost to time.
Right.
Where it's like, we want new people to experience this, but we also want to bring in that older audience. And Star Wars tried, but hey,
Sure.
it is what it is. Sometimes the fan bases are not as open-minded. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, for reboots, I think that this is the way to do it. You swing really big. Don't just give us the same thing over and over and over again. I might not like all of the decisions that they made, but I'm not going to walk out and say, well, they just copied this, or they just did the same movie twice. And that's worse to me. That's worse. If you want to make decisions and you want to go into uncharted territory, I say good. I'm a big fan of music, right?
Same. Yeah.
And there's nothing worse to me than when someone covers a song and it is exactly the way. The band Weezer put out an album a few years back called the White Album, I think, and it was all covers. And if you listen to it, it just sounds like Rivers Cuomo doing karaoke. Like the music, it's identical to all the original songs, and it's like, what's the point of this? But when someone takes a song and they cover it and they make it something new and they make it something different, that to me, that's worth my time listening to it. I'll just listen to the original.
Yeah. No, that's very true.
And so with this one, like you said, we've never really seen them in high school, right? We have a totally different take on April. I loved all the throw up stuff, and that they, at first they kind of danced around it and then they committed to it. And I was like, yes, I really enjoy that. It's a different take on Splinter, all of the other mutants also being like the same age as them. Even though they're voiced by much, much older voice actors. Yeah. So how did you feel about Ice Cube as Superfly?
Oh, he was fantastic. And I was actually going to ask you, outside of the Turtles, who was like your favorite mutant that we've seen. But for Superfly, it's like I've seen a lot of like at least the featurettes that we have that are out there. And Ice Cube it seemed like he had a blast with it. And just, the fly, the mutated fly, it's not, I forgot the professor's name, because I believe in the original cartoon, the professor himself turns into a fly. But this time it's the fly that he mutates a fly. So it's, the mutants, the other mutants, when it comes to Ice Cube, just leading them, dropping small little lyrics from his own catalog. He's had such a great time. I adored him so much. And I can't wait to go see it again. And just because, you see a movie once, you're like, okay, you're watching it for a review. And then you want to go see it again just to,
Yep, absolutely.
Just to watch it and not think about anything else and just appreciate it. So I'm excited to see how he still holds up. I'm hoping he's even funnier the second time around because now I get to actually watch it with fans instead of critics.
Right.
So it's a different audience for sure.
Yeah. At first, I was a little, I don't want to say confused, but I was like, I took note because, right, the Fly is always Baxter Stockman, right?
Right.
He's a human that turns into this mutant, right? And they make a big differentiation between the humans and the mutants in this movie, right? That's the big culmination of the movie is that the humans and the mutants are now like working together, right?
Right.
And the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are now going to like human high school and, you know, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So the reasoning behind not making Stockman the Fly made itself clear as the movie goes on. But initially I was like, oh, that's okay. I don't know why you would necessarily do that. Because, yeah, I mean, if he was a human Fly, why would he want to kill all humans everywhere? And I think Ice Cube is great. He's really funny. He felt like he brought a real presence to that character, like just the physicality of the character, like how he moved, like you know, shoulders first, and
definitely skipped leg day, I think, for sure.
It felt like I was like, okay, you know what? I've been in a room with these guys. Like I've been in a room with this guy many times over my lifetime. I thought that was a great like voice to animation combo. Honestly, like it was very impressive. I was a really big fan of Paul Rudd.
It was Mondo Gecko.
Yeah, he was very, very funny. I was also a big fan of Rose Byrne as Leatherhead, the crocodile. I wish we'd gotten like a little bit more of her.
Yeah,
I think that might. My problem with this movie, I have like two main problems with this movie. One is it's a lot of characters to introduce in one movie. We don't necessarily need, you know, 10 mutants right off the bat.
Yeah.
And everyone is voiced by a different celebrity and, you know.
Rightfully. Always.
Right.
Yeah. Post Malone.
It can be a lot. And I think that, you know, you're doing your first outing, you have all this IP, we want to use this IP, we want to sell toys. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, right? You're trying to maximize. Yeah, you're trying to maximize all of that stuff. But as far as like a story, it can become cluttered and certain characters don't have room to breathe. Where the characters who have room to breathe, April, the Turtles, Splinter, Superfly, they all come across really, really well and memorable and like good performances. Paul Rudd, he kind of rises to the top because I feel like of all the other mutants, he kind of gets the most amount of time.
I agree.
So that's my first problem with the movie. And the second problem with the movie is it is really sentimental. It's like so over the top, like, you know, oh, I hate humans because humans hate me. Oh, well, now humans are going to come to my aid in the last minute. And where I have to kind of like shut that part of my brain off is, like I said, I have a 10-year-old kid, right? And so I go with him to a lot of movies. And you had already mentioned, maybe it was off mic, I can't remember, but basically like the whole story of like acceptance and family, we've seen it over and over and over again. I make a joke about Pixar movies. Name any Pixar movie. Go ahead.
Coco.
Right. So Coco is a great movie because it's all about being true to yourself, right? And like learning who you are and your place in the world, but also it's about the importance of family. Go ahead, name another Pixar movie.
And The Incredibles.
Right. So The Incredibles, it's all about finding your own place in the world and like being true to yourself, finding your own personal strengths, but it's also about the power of family. Go ahead. Hit me with number 3.
Toy Story 2.
Right. Okay. So Toy Story 2, specifically Toy Story 2. But like it works. It's the same formula over and over. Moana, right?
Yeah.
Moana is all about finding your own destiny, your own path, but being true to your family. Where do you fit in your family? And as an adult, you watch these movies over and over, and it's like, okay, I get it. But the reality is, for a 6-year-old kid or an 8-year-old kid who's in the theater and they're watching this for the first time, these themes are new to them. You know, the 3-act structure is new to them. Things being mentioned in the first act and then paying off in the 3rd act,
Yeah.
that's like blowing their mind, you know. And I don't say that to belittle them. I'm just saying, for us as adults, it can become like, I want to see something different, but it's not for us.
No, yeah, exactly. It is a Nickelodeon movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, we can enjoy it, but I think we always have to stop and say, you know, what is the kid next to me saying? What is he seeing? And can I see it kind of through his eyes? And so, like, having kids of different ages really helps me take off my critical thinking hat and say, like, okay, yeah, to a 10-year-old kid who's watching this movie, the number one thing on his mind really might be acceptance and feeling like you're kind of separated from the world, and you want to prove yourself so that people will accept you. But is that why you do the right thing? So anyway, like I said,
no, I get it. Yeah.
it's so sentimental. It's like very on the nose, but I give it a pass because I'm a 34-year-old man watching a cartoon about
No, but like, no,
Teenage
seriously.
Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, about turtles jumping and doing kickflips and stuff. But I mean, when it comes to sentimental, I totally get it. I mean, but even with like some adults who, like, you know, a franchise, like whether it be, you know, Star Wars, TMNT, just anything you can name up. Like, I've seen so many like reactionary videos, you know, the trailers everyone does on YouTube, where, you know, there's a guy who's like super into Star Wars, and like they were just like crying during the when, like, I mean, I think it's kind of special because, like, I mean, you know, that franchise, whatever it may be, could have helped them through some tough times.
Sure,
and it's
absolutely.
like, maybe, you know, so you know, a huge TMNT fan going to see this movie who's, you know, you know, I'm 31, so it's like, you know, someone like a millennial or maybe a little bit older is like, man, like, I absolutely just love this franchise, and it still speaks to them in that kind of way. So yeah, either way, like, you know, but you know, for kids, like you said, you know, we've seen it time and time over again. I totally understand the issue that my mom had with me watching The Lion King for like the upteenth time on our VHS tape, because she's like, okay, watch something else. Like, we've seen this over and over and over. But yeah, like, that's a really good point you made, where it's like, it's always for the kids most and foremost, because that could have been like, oh, you know, my dad took me to go see Mutant Mayhem when I was a kid, and I absolutely loved it. The kids in my theater, I was able to see it like a week early. They had like a critic screening and then like a fan screening running simultaneously, but for critics, we could bring like our friends and family, and everyone brought their kids, and they ate it up. They loved it, and I was like, this is what it's all about. You know.
Yeah, you know, it's hard to like say like, well, this movie gets a pass, right? It's just, kids movies, they fit into such a specific age range, and once you get past that, it covers everyone else on the planet. You know what I mean? Like, every movie, I don't really buy into the idea of like, well, this movie isn't really made for me because it's made by and starring women, right? When I was younger, and when you were younger, people would call that a chick flick, right? And I don't hear that too much anymore. Thankfully, people don't say that. Or like, well, this movie, you know, this is a black movie, or, you know, it's intended for black audiences and starring black people. And as a non-black person, that movie's just not for me. I don't buy that. Like, I don't buy that at all. Like, anyone can get anything out of any movie, you know?
Yeah.
But with kids movies, it is like, it's to a very, very specific age range. And so I do think we have to think of them like differently. You know, I'm not going to judge this movie the same way that I'm going to judge Oppenheimer.
Right.
And it's not giving it a pass. It's just realizing like you're handling different materials.
Yeah, I mean, there are movies made for specific audiences. This is clearly made for children. The Mario movie was like, yeah,
Right.
gamers are going to go see it, but the
But
Mario
it's a
movie
kids
was
movie.
clearly made like, and that movie plays it. You know, a lot of kids movies play it super safe, but you know, there's always like the stereotype of like, oh well, cartoons are just for kids, but that's a
Right.
very like old fashioned like American
Yeah.
mindset. Where it's like, trust me, if you start watching like Attack on Titan, like any kind of anime, which Donnie was a fan of in this movie,
Yes. Yeah.
I absolutely love that he is a a huge weeb,
Yep.
where we stay strong out there.
Yeah.
Because it's like when I was a kid, like watching anime wasn't like necessarily the cool thing. Because it's
Oh
like,
yeah. No.
oh, like, well, cartoons are for kids, and it's like, heck, like I turned 21, still watching Dragon Ball Z, still watching Naruto, still watching
Sure.
all of these fantastic, stories where it kind of proves that animation isn't just for kids. But I feel like the American mindset, it's like, oh, we have TMNT. Oh, this is for kids and kids only. It's like, whoa, 40 years of history there. So there's going to be a lot of TMNT fans seeing
Yeah,
this.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, I think I think that the world is a dark and scary place, and I think that a lot of folks' lives are very hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't care what you find enjoyment in. I really
Yeah.
don't. Like if you my mom is a huge fan of the Fast and the Furious movies.
Oh,
You know,
man. Heck yeah. It's all about
yeah,
family.
like she's super into Fast and Furious. She's super into like John Wick.
Mm.
You know, that's really not my cup of tea. But do I look at her and like put her into some kind of category?
No.
Like, no, that's just what
Movies are
she's
movies. Yeah.
right. That's just what she's into. And I think in this world, if we can find something that can make us happy and that we can enjoy, as long as it's not like, going to a Nazi rally, like clearly I'm not talking about that. Right.
Right.
But just as far as like our hobbies and the things that we find enjoyment from or find pleasure in, who cares? Like literally,
Yeah.
who cares? If you really enjoy Shakespeare or if you really enjoy TMNT, I'm not comparing those things in quality, but to you, the quality doesn't matter. It's just what you like. So yeah. So for me, this movie is a lot of fun. I definitely didn't love it as much as everyone else. What I've seen is a lot of people are saying that this is like surpassing the Spider-Verse from this year for them.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, that's another movie
they're
that
different though.
Yeah,
It's
I've
different.
gotten a lot of flack for not loving the Spider-Verse movies.
It's okay. My heart's just breaking on the inside.
That and Paddington. Usually when people hear that I don't like the Spider-Verse movies or Paddington, they're like, what is wrong with this guy?
Paddington. I remember us having a discussion about Paddington. I was like, hold on. But honestly, I was joking. I was like, yeah, it's like you said, you like what you like.
Yeah.
And I feel like nowadays people are like, oh, if people don't like what I like, then there's something wrong with them. And it's like, well,
Right.
no, film is so subjective.
Yeah.
Where, for Spider-Verse, obviously people are going to be making the comparison because of the animation style, but the animation style, like there's some similar beats for Spider-Verse, but this really is its own thing.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's like, I believe Chris Miller actually brought this up on Twitter saying how people should go see this movie. Not only because of the director and him kind of working on Mitchell's versus Machines together, but the fact for studios, like he was tweeting that like studios are driven by two things, which are greed and fear. And for the longest time, studios were afraid that if you made an animated film with a unique, like stylistic language, American audiences are going to be confused and not show up to the box office.
Right.
But the truth is that audiences want new experiences. And obviously we've seen that with Mitchell's vs. Machine, with Spider-Verse, but he was saying all that for people to see the movie because more people, the more that people see this film, Hollywood's going to get greedy and like, hey, that opens up the door for even more animation styles.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's a beautiful. That was just me reading off Twitter, but I was like,
No,
yeah, like,
I
I
mean,
think it's yeah,
I agree. I agree. And like, I think I would rather bring my son to see this movie or Spider-Verse, or even, I'm not a fan of Disney, but even the new Wish movie with
mm,
its branching out, just to encourage, I can't imagine being an artist and being stuck in like one lane. Like,
yeah.
especially like, and you're an artist. Like
You're
you
you're
are.
literally supposed to spread your wings
Right.
and
Like
like,
creativity is your whole
yeah,
thing. And so just to support like the artists who are like pushing forward new and interesting designs, I think that that's something, worth supporting. Do I think that you need to see this movie in theaters? I do not.
fair enough.
I just for your own experience, I think that you can get this experience at home,
Mm.
but clearly you would say the opposite, right?
Yeah, just I mean, either or. I mean, I get it. Ever since COVID, a lot of people have just been very reserved about going to the theater, and I totally get it. Especially for a kids movie, if you have multiple children, you and your spouse and whoever else, if you're gathering up the whole family, extended family, whatever it may be, like it is a pricey
Yeah.
it's pricey, and
Yeah.
it's like, hey, if you have kids, if you and it's like, hey, I want my child to see this, but either they just don't have the time to take their kids to go see the theaters, like it will be on Paramount Plus. I
Yeah.
don't think that it's a bad thing that people want to wait, because people's lives get so busy, and sometimes like you just don't have the financial capacity to take you and everyone. It was like, okay, you're, little Jimmy or Sarah wants to go see the new movie, or like whatever movie it is. It's like, okay, well, you want to bring your spouse, make it more of a family event. That's at least 4 to 5 tickets, depending on, how many kids you have. That's at least what, $15 to $20 per ticket. And that's just for tickets. And
Right.
then you have to, okay, we're going to eat beforehand or afterhand somewhere else, or we're going to get snacks at the theater. That price starts stacking up so much. Next thing you know, you're spending like $120 to $130, depending again on, I know that's an outrageous number, but you're spending a lot of money on a single movie that you may or may not even like.
Right.
So I don't think there's anything wrong with people waiting to see this on Paramount Plus, because it's definitely going to be there at some
Sure.
point. So
Yeah.
yeah, like, if you want to see it in theaters, definitely do it. If you want to wait and for it to hit Paramount Plus, or heck, even buy the Blu-ray, because that's important too.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, I have no issues with people. I don't want to be like, oh, you can only watch this in theaters. Like,
Right.
there should be different avenues for people to choose how to watch movies. And yeah.
Yeah. I had 7 siblings growing up,
Oh my gosh.
and so I can count on maybe 2 hands, maybe 1 hand, the amount of times we all went to the theater
Mm,
together, and
that's crazy.
probably 2 hands the amount of times I went to the theater as a kid, just in general.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was
Yeah,
quite
7
expensive.
kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very. Yeah, that's true. I guess everyone has their own different tastes as well. So it's yeah, it depends on the family for sure. Like I was able to, my mom took me to a lot of movies growing up. I actually got my name from a movie. Fun fact. So
Oh, really? What movie?
yeah, the Robin Hood movie with Morgan Freeman.
Okay.
So
Oh,
I believe
okay.
Robin Hood used Morgan Freeman's character called Robin Hood Christian throughout the movie. So my mom was in a movie theater pregnant with me, trying to figure out what to name this kid, and then that's how she came up with the name.
That's great. I love any kind of movie story that like has an impact on your real life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I have several movies that like changed the trajectory of my life, which sounds
That's
crazy.
Awesome. No, it's
but
beautiful. Movies are life.
It's true. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. All right, so if you can, we do like a 1 through 5 letterbox scale.
Okay.
What would you rate this movie?
4.5 stars.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I loved
right,
it.
cool.
It's it's just I love movies where everyone, like, not only myself are enjoying, but just seeing, majority of people just go to the movies and just having a good time. You get the whole, the weird social media stuff kind of gets weird when it's, everyone's like, oh, well, everyone wants to play like verbal gymnastics. I'm like, I just want to
Sure.
have a good time at the
Sure.
movies.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I saw Cocaine Bear. I know a lot of people don't love it. I was like, I just had a good time. I
I
was
agree. Same
laughing.
thing. I
Yeah.
laughed.
And it's like, as long as I come out enjoying it, like, I chose to take amount of time out of my life to see this movie. And it's like, yeah, it's just a great iteration of the Turtles. Probably the best iteration we've had in a while theatrically, because
Mhm.
theatrically, outside of the first two Turtle movies, live action, it's it's been all over the place.
Right.
But
Right.
but yeah, I adore this movie. Go watch this movie in theaters if you want to wait for Paramount Plus when it hits there. Just as long as you watch this movie and experience it to show what animation can really do, and hopefully that will open up the doors for more types of animation instead of like your general like Pixar, because a lot of these studios are starting to kind of look the same. Like
Yeah.
Mario's like looks like it was made by
Yeah.
Pixar, and no one really knows it was made by Illumination. They're like, oh, that
Right.
Pixar Mario movie, right? I'm like, well, everyone just thinks all animation's Pixar now.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, go
Yeah.
see this movie. It's great.
If a
4.5
minion
stars.
wandered onto the frame or into the frame in Super Mario, it wouldn't look out of place.
No, it would
like
not.
it's just identical.
I'm surprised they didn't throw one in there.
Yeah.
Maybe Nintendo said no.
Right. Yeah. So, like I said, I didn't love this movie. I would say probably 3.5 for me, maybe 3. But what I definitely agree with is it's a step in the right direction. It's an interesting step where they're trying to do something different. And I can appreciate that. I would like to see maybe a more focused story next time around with like, I don't need all these characters. I'm curious to see, the decision to do like the TV show in between movies. I think that's pretty cool. To give them like more time. I would definitely like to see some of the other turtles. I feel like this is in a slight way mostly about Leonardo. I would like to see some of the other
yeah.
I would like to see them give more time to the other turtles
for sure,
to kind of flesh out like more of their own goals and interests.
Yeah,
yeah,
and even them going to high school. Like,
yeah.
When they're signing up for like, oh, I want to do X, Y, and Z, like what they want to do. I thought that was great strength to like their individual personality.
Yeah, the improv joke with Mikey when they're formulating the plan at the end, where he's into improv and he says yes, and I thought that was pretty smart. That was good. So yeah, I would say 3.5 stars. You're at 4.5. It's an enjoyable time. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fine. And I will say this: when I left, I wasn't disinterested to find out what comes next. So
yeah,
I know that's that's not a very enthusiastic
no, you're fine,
endorsement of the film, but yeah, I don't know. So Christian, where can people find you?
Oh boy. So you can find me on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. You can find us on, I'll just call it Twitter because that's what everyone calls it anyway.
Yeah.
So you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Film Optix. That is Optics with an X for the extreme. I don't know why I did it that way, but but yeah, that's where we post like all of our podcast episodes. We're an audio only podcast, so you don't get to see this beautiful face all the time, but you can listen to this amazing voice all together. But yeah, we've just been, going through the motions. We have actually 2 reviews of TMNT. I was so excited. I was like, let's do a non-spoiler. I'm like, let's do a spoiler. So we did both for that. And yeah, just coming off the heels of Barbenheimer, you can listen to our reviews of both, which is actually in one amazing episode. And just check out what we have, love to just for people to explore different podcasts wherever they are. You know, I'm a big fan of Seth's podcast as well. So yeah, the more you know, and you know,
Yeah,
it just
that's
opens
right.
you up to more movies as well.
That's right. And I think it's important too to listen to different voices and hear differing opinions on things.
Absolutely.
You know, it's never good to be in an echo chamber. What I was just talking with someone the other day, and I was saying how I think it's actually good to be in bubbles. Like bubbles are fun. And you know, if you have found a group of people,
yeah,
it's good to be in a circle, in a group, in a bubble. It's not good to be in an echo chamber though. Like
right.
within that bubble, you should have differing voices, differing opinions, and sometimes that takes work because as people, we naturally gravitate towards our own,
right,
you know, kind and group, and we want to hear, you know, our own words repeating back to us through other people,
like for validation.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, so definitely, yeah, check out Film Optix. That's Film Optix on all social media platforms, and also check out their podcast. Christian, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We did it, Seth. Our
We
first
did it.
episode together.
Yeah.
We did it. We did it.
The soundboard, it made an appearance.
I was trying to figure out when to use it. I was like, we're deep in the conversation. I can't break it up with that. But I was like, I'll sneak it in there at some points.
For us, you can check us out, Movie Friends Podcast, on all social media platforms, and send us an email, moviefriendspodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I never know how to end episodes. It's like I always, you know.
Cowabunga, dude.
Yeah, all right, cool. Hey, Cowabunga. Thanks, Christian. All right, thank you for listening. Have a good one.